The winner takes it all, the loser standing small beside the victory.
I remember when I was in 6th grade, I walked up into the balcony of the Fruitport Middle School and saw some of the older divers diving. And it was the first time in my life that I saw something and I knew right then and there, I said to myself, I want to do that. And so I went home and my mom let me sign up for diving, and we were able to start diving practice, and I absolutely loved it. When I look back, I really see how much influence my mom had on the success of my diving. I was one of 8 children, and she went to work as when my brother turned 5 and I was 6, and she earned a little extra money to help support our extras. And for me, that was being able to participate in diving and to be able to afford to go to the meets and diving camps in the summer where we were able to be trained by some of the best diving coaches in the nation. We tried to dive as much as possible. I remember even in middle school, not coming home after school, knowing that if I got home, I might not be able to make it back and get into the pool. And so I would often go home with my friend Mary, and we'd walk back and be able to practice. It was our goal to get into that pool every single day.
One of my favorite memories is when you and I and Kathy used to go on a lot of diving trips over the weekends, and when we would stop at any place to eat, all of us would always order grilled ham and cheese. And one of my memories is when we would be sitting there waiting for our food to be delivered, we would be dying to know what color toothpick we were going to get in our sandwich, because to us that was an indication if we were going to do well in our diving meet that weekend. So if you got gold in your sandwich, you were going to get first place, and we all sat back and waited for gold. So I brought some gold toothpicks today, Lynn, because obviously you are the one that got the gold grilled ham and cheese. So congratulations on that.
Lynn and I have been friends since 7th grade. One of the memories I have of Lynn is when she used to practice diving in the gym. They would hook her up to a harness and she would practice her dives, going through all the motions of each dive. And I can remember back then thinking how cool that was, and also how I never could have done anything like that. I remember watching her at practice and at her diving meets, and was so proud of her. She always put 100% into everything she ever did, and diving was definitely no exception.
When we went into high school, our first coach was Roger Harriman. He was an awesome coach. We loved him. All of the swimmers loved him. The divers loved him.
I first met Lynnette wadaga Bloomberg when she was in 6th grade. I had just taken the position as aquatic director for the Fruitport school system, and I started a swimming and diving club. I had Lynn as a student in regular middle school swimming classes and also as a member of the diving club. As a diver, Lynn did very well. She learned new dives fairly easy. She did sustain a few face and back slaps, which left a few black eyes and welts, but she never gave up. She always had a great attitude and was fun to work with.
We had a lot of curveballs thrown at us, so to speak. We practiced real hard. We had 4 divers from Fruitport that qualified for the state championships. And all of a sudden we got up and ready for the diving event, and then figured out that our roster hadn't been turned in, so we had been disqualified. That was a big disappointment. And I remember being more in shock than disappointed. It just seemed unbelievable. I knew that I could continue to dive. It wasn't like I had to wait another whole year to get a chance to compete and do my best. So I think we sort of took it in stride, not knowing that the next year Fruitport lost its millage, and somehow they decided to have a boys swimming team and let it be a co-ed team, because the year before we did not have a boys swimming team. And so it was a boys team that was filled with girls, and we actually qualified for the regionals that year. And the next year we had our swimming or diving had been put back in. We had all of our sports, I guess. That was the year that Mary and Kathy and I all qualified for the state meet once again. Kathy and Kathy was actually ahead of me at the end of the preliminary dives, and during the final round I had really some great dives and was able to take first place and become the champion for the state Class B divers. The thing I remember most about that is that that was the only meet my dad was able to see me dive in, and he was very proud of me, and so that was real special. That made that whole thing more special than anything. And then the following year, Fruitport once again lost their sports, and I decided to go to Grand Haven, so I went to live with my sister Kathy, who lived within the district boundaries, and I dove for the Grand Haven swim team because my ultimate goal again was to get that college scholarship, and I knew that was unlikely to happen if I didn't dive in my last year of high school. So I did fairly well and placed 5th at the state Class A championships for Grand Haven.
After 3 to 4 years at Fruitport, I accepted a position at the University of Wisconsin in Green Bay. My wife and I kept in contact with Lynn, Diane, and their family. I also followed Lynn's high school career. During her senior year, I talked to Lynn about attending UW Green Bay and dive for the university. I offered her a scholarship and a position as my secretary. Thankfully, she accepted. As a freshman, Lynn qualified for the swimming and diving collegiate national championships. Lynn had the most difficult list of dives of all the competitors at this meet. Somewhere along her career, Lynn developed a serious case of shin splints. She was constantly receiving treatments. Her shin was always wrapped, and she had to take ice treatments after every practice. There were days she had a difficult time walking, let alone diving. I remember at Nationals, Lynn had received treatment by the trainer, and her legs were slippery. She came to me and said, "Coach, I can't hang on to my tuck. My legs are too slippery." I just happened to have him stick them in the training kit, so he sprayed her legs with it. Then she came back to me and said, "Coach, I can't let go of my legs." Well, fortunately, she was able to release her legs, and because she placed 5th in both the 1 and 3 meter competition, which qualified her as a collegiate All-American. There is no doubt in my mind that if Lynn hadn't had such a severe case of shin splint, she could have won both the 1 and 3 meter competition. She was by far one of the most talented divers at the national meet.
Lynn is so deserving of this award, as she not only is a person that has worked hard for that one sport, but she's worked hard for everything throughout her life. She's a respected business owner and community volunteer, but more importantly, she's a wonderful mother, friend, and a woman of faith. I'm so proud of you, Lynn, and I am so sorry that I'm not there tonight to share in this with you, but you know that you are in my thoughts and in my heart. I love you.
Lynn was not only a great diver, but a great team leader, student, and a friend. I would like to take this opportunity to congratulate Lynnette, wadaga Bloomberg, on her induction into the Fruitport Hall of Fame. This is an honor well deserved.
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Lynnette Bloomberg.
I guess it was a surprise to see Julie there. I know she's really wanted to be here tonight, but she's out of town. So I'd first like to acknowledge that, my talent and love for diving was definitely a gift from God. Without the talent, the opportunity to develop it, I'm 99% sure that I would have made some pretty stupid choices when I was younger. And if my mom and dad were here today, I'd tell them thank you from the bottom of my heart. Mostly for giving me a strong faith foundation, because without it I wouldn't be who or where I am today. I'm sure I would have missed more dives if they hadn't taught me how to pray, because I certainly did pray between every single dive, and I'm pretty sure that my mom did the same when she watched me like this. because she was often pretty scared sitting up in that balcony watching some of those dives come close to the board. My mom and dad together raised 8 children, and I know money was really tight, and my mom worked very hard to support my love of diving. After I graduated, it was decades after I graduated, she had come up to me one time and showed me this envelope that she had stashed with money in it that said Lynn's Diving on the outside of the envelope. So she had been saving something she'd probably lost, but that's how she was able to afford to support my passion, was to save money here and there. And so it just blessed her heart. It was very sweet. I was also blessed but I also would like to say thank you to my family, a lot of my family's here with me tonight. My sister Kathy actually supported me by letting me live with her and dive in Grand Haven in my senior year. I know my sister Chris took some of the only pictures I have of me diving. She came to a meet, my mom must have told her, and she came to one of the AAU or Junior Olympic meets on the east side of the state and took pictures. And I also remember when I was at UWGB, I came home for Christmas and I took the Greyhound bus home, and if you've ever taken a Greyhound on a very long ride, you know that it's a very long ride. And I was sort of complaining about it, and I remember, if anybody knows my sister Teresa and her husband Ken Briggs, I was complaining about it, and Teresa said something almost just like this: "Hey, Ken, can we take her back to Green Bay?" And Ken said, "Yup." And so they did. They drove me back to Green Bay so I didn't have to take the Greyhound, and they came back and they drove through some terrible, terrible winter weather. But it's just a lot of love and support from my family, and I thank you very much for all of your encouragement and support. And I was also blessed by having really great coaches and other people to teach and encourage me. For all the coaches out there, I hope you know how much of an impact you have on an athlete's life. You may be the only one that sees a spark of talent and then takes the time to develop it. Yours may be the only positive words a student hears for weeks at a time. You may be the only one that cares enough to teach a young person discipline, teach them how to set goals, and then teach them how to work hard to achieve them. You may be the only reason a student gets up in the morning to go to school, quite honestly. And for me, you were the reason that I hated snow days, because snow days meant that there was no way I could possibly get up and get into the pool that day. And believe me, I was very disappointed. So this year would have been a bad day, or a bad year if I was still in school. But coaches do it because there's something inside of them, and they really want to make a difference in a young person's life. But they often do it at the expense of their own family and personal time. And frankly, they don't do it for the money at this level anyway. So, but they often do it without a proper thank you. And so this recognition has given me the opportunity to be able to say thank you to some people who have really made a difference in my life. I'd especially like to thank Roger Harriman, who is here tonight, by the way, over at our table. That's great. He really helped me. He was the first one that helped me develop the passion for diving, and he ultimately helped me achieve my goal through diving, which was to get a college scholarship. So if we just figured out the last couple days we've been reminiscing, is that he was my first and last coach. But in between came Jeannie Howard McLean. When Roger had went to UWGB, Jeannie stepped in. She was one of the older divers and had been through it, and so she coached us and helped us, keep up with our skill and learn our skills as we went along for a while. And then came Chuck Millard, who's here as well. He was from Grand Haven, and he welcomed us with open arms and did a lot of the AAU and Junior Olympic meets with us too. And diving was a lot of fun. Doing those meets was a lot of fun. So thank you very, very much, and I thank you for all the time you've spent, and I thank your family for sharing you with us. And there was one other person, and it was Judd Allward. In our senior year, or my junior year, the year I got the championship, we really didn't have a diving coach on the team. And when we qualified for state, I remembered we went and talked to Judd Allward, who was a coach around here, and he was coaching his own team at the time, but yet he came back and coached us for 3 weeks prior to the competition, and it really made a lot of difference. So one of the greatest lessons that sports has taught me is how to be resilient and persevere. You know, the best laid plans meet roadblocks, and sometimes we find ourselves on a road that we hadn't planned to take. There's many twists and turns and disappointments, undeserved disqualifications, lost funding, bad calls, injuries, and sometimes you just plain wipe out. But through it all, when you are surrounded by a team of family and friends who support and encourage you and love you and sometimes direct and lead you in the right way, you'll always find your way. There's much power in affirming words and encouraging words. When we were freshmen and we were disqualified, Sherry Coltis was our coach that year. And then my junior year, when I got the championship, she gave me a card and a plaque. And at that time, I read the plaque, and it didn't really mean much to me, and I kind of set it aside, and I brought it out maybe less than a handful of times over the next 3 decades. And I brought it out, found it recently, this past weekend, packed in a box, and this is what it said. It said, "That woman is a success, who loves life and lives it to the fullest, who has discovered and shared the strengths and talents that are uniquely her own, who puts her best into each task and leaves each situation better than she found it, who seeks and finds that which is beautiful in all people and all things, whose heart is full of love and warm with compassion, who has found joy in living and peace within herself." I did not see myself in those words when I was 16. She saw in me what I could not see in myself. And she planted these affirming words in my heart, and that is very powerful. And today, I do see myself in these words. So I'm honored and I'm humbled by this recognition. A special thanks to my friends who have come to celebrate with me and continue to encourage and support me in a lot of things in my life. I'm proud to be a Fruitport Trojan. I'm proud to have grown up into a community that creates such strong bonds that are hard to break. And it's just like when you don't see people for decades, like coaches and friends, and then when you do meet them, you fall back in step like you haven't been apart. And so it just gives you a true sense of belonging. So I thank you very much for this recognition, and I am proud to be a Fruitport Trojan.